If you're sitting in your church and you know why I can't live like that, you're blind. You can't tell me why I can't live like my pastor, my first lady, or their entourage, or anything else. Leandria Johnson is accustomed to controversy in a field where many people steer clear of difficult realities. She has always been open about her personal struggles, but in a recent live stream, even her most devoted followers were taken aback by the gospel singer. Leandria publicly discussed church corruption, specifically blaming televangelist Creflo Dollar. Come learn the truth about what actually transpired between Creflo Dollar and Leandria Johnson. When Leandria Johnson walked the stage on Sunday, she won hearts. While many gospel musicians have attempted to project an ideal of perfection, her unvarnished honesty was what really made her stand out in 2010. Her voice was strong, and her presence was captivating. Leandria's shortcomings were evident from the beginning. She never concealed her battles with addiction, openly sharing them in interviews and on social media. She even checked herself into a rehab facility while still performing, and she struggled with her faith in public, frequently crying and doubting everything when she was feeling down. Fans related to her openness about being a work in progress. In numerous live streams and interviews, she's opened up about how the gospel world treated her, not as a person, but as a product. In 2018, she called out the institutional church for being more concerned with money. It's like with merge sparked a debate, but lacked words. Specific targets, however, in the years that followed, she began naming names. And one of those names was Creflo Dollar in one of her emotional live streams. Leandria directly called out Pastor Creflo Dollar. She said he is a big part of what considers a system of faith exploitation. She directly accused Creflo's ministry of pressuring congregants into giving large sums of money under the guise of spiritual breakthroughs. According to Leandria, many churchgoers were promised divine favor miracles or financial success if only they would sow a seed, but for many, those promises never came true. Instead, they were left deeper in debt while their pastors grew wealthier. Her accusation wasn't just that prosperity gospel theology was flawed. It was that its execution was predatory. Leandria indicated that Creflo's ministry employed strategies to emotionally coerce people into giving, such as guilt, tripping them for lacking faith, or implying that poverty was an indication of spiritual deficiency. She also claimed to have seen congregation members, particularly elderly members and single mothers, being urged to give even though they were obviously unable to. These include psychological abuses as well as spiritual ones. Some fans immediately turned against her, and her colleagues in the industry distanced themselves. But Leandria refused to back down. She didn't apologize or take anything back. In fact, she doubled down because she believed that speaking the truth was worth the risk. Even for someone as well known as Leandria, the accusations aren't the first time that Cref has made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Creflo Dollar is a big name to challenge as founder and senior pastor of World Changers Church International. His teachings have reached millions across the globe. He preaches that faith can unlock wealth and health, and that giving, especially financial sowing into the church, is the path to divine blessings for his supporters. He is a visionary who empowers believers to live abundantly, but to critics, he represents everything wrong with modern televangelists. They believe these televangelists encourage lavish spending and present a distorted gospel that equates spirituality with materialism. But even before Leandria took his name, Creflo has faced scrutiny multiple times, especially after reports about his extravagant lifestyle surfaced, from multiple luxury homes to high-end cars and private jets. His net worth and assets have sparked intense criticism. Perhaps the most infamous episode was his request in 2015 for $65 million in donations to fund a new Gulfstream G650 jet, which was supposedly to help him travel the world for ministry. Many people questioned how such an appeal could be justified, given that many churchgoers find it difficult to meet their fundamental necessities. And Leandria Johnson's objections are based on this tension. In her live stream, she questioned how a pastor could live like a celebrity while their congregation couldn't afford rent. She said it was really unethical. Leandria disclosed that the gospel industry and megachurch culture employ a degree of covert tactics that the majority of followers are unaware of. She described being invited to private gatherings where well-known pastors and gospel influencers weren't talking about religious doctrine, but rather concentrated on making money, building their brands, and developing their strategies. According to her sermons, these off-camera events occasionally aim to maximize emotional effect and giving rather than to uplift, with a heavy emphasis on money, how to raise it, how to market items, and how to maintain power. She asserted that churches kept careful records of who gave what, and that those who contributed more received preferential treatment, such as invitations to exclusive events, blessings, or even personalized prophecies, while those who contributed less were quietly disregarded or accused of lacking faith. She portrayed a church that had devolved into a luxurious club rather than a place of worship, where spiritual significance is determined by financial power. The pressure gospel artists face to remain silent is one of the most chilling aspects of Leandria's story. She described how the industry protects its most powerful figures and punishes anyone who dares to speak out after she named Creflo Dollar. She also shared how she was approached by insiders with offers to participate in the system, preach prosperity, endorse certain leaders, and receive financial support and platform growth. However, when she declined, the doors began to close. What Leandria revealed is not just a critique of one pastor, but of an entire infrastructure where influence is bought and honesty comes at a cost. Leandria claimed to have gone through a wave of professional blackballing, with her music being discreetly removed from radio rotation, calls ceasing, and appearances being canceled. Industry insiders warned her that criticizing a prominent pastor would end her career in the gospel industry, as many artists rely on the church circuit for their income through concerts, conferences, and church-backed promotions. She also claimed to have received threats, both direct and indirect, urging her to rescind her statements or cease speaking altogether. She was labeled a troublemaker, a distraction, and even ungrateful, but silence was no longer an option in her eyes. According to Leandria, the gospel community has an unwritten rule that requires that leaders be publicly praised even when they are being privately questioned, ignore abuses of power, and avoid financial exploitation. She also mentioned other artists who have quietly vanished after speaking out, going from chart-topping hits to being completely shunned by the industry. Their careers didn't end due to a lack of talent, but rather because of what they dared to say. A growing number of people are starting to critically examine the system because of Leandria Johnson's bravery in speaking what others only whispered. Her raw honesty struck a nerve, challenging the comfort zones of both church leaders and believers. The greatest impact of her testimony isn't in the controversy itself, but in the ripple effect she's given voice to those who felt disillusioned, shamed, or manipulated. Dollar continues to deny any wrongdoing, and many of his followers remain fiercely loyal, viewing his wealth as a sign of divine favor and spiritual success. Regardless of how others react, one thing is certain. Leandria Johnson has chosen her path and will not remain silent in the face of injustice, regardless of how esteemed the institution is or how high the personal cost. She has also urged gospel artists to speak the truth, even if it means losing fans, platforms, or friends.